So I am making this recording because it's kind of a continuance from the corruption in Franklin County, Missouri. I live in St. Clair, Missouri. My daughter resides in St. Clair, Missouri with her father, I believe. I have not even heard her voice or seen her in almost 3 years now. Um, she was taken from me by the courts illegally. I have been denied access to her medical records, access to her school records, and I've been imprisoned. I've been kidnapped and roofied and raped. I've woken up at a landfill. I've been hit by a car and had my back and my back broken in two places, my tailbone broken in two places, or my pelvic bone broken in two places, and my tailbone broken completely off while riding on the back of a motorcycle. After I got out of prison, I spent almost a year in prison. Uh, I had to learn how to walk again. I was in a wheelchair for almost a month. I was helicoptered to St. Louis, where I was knocked completely out for almost 4 days before I even came to. Um, my daughter's dad, I believe, has been sexually abusing her. I have tried calling DFS. I have tried calling um, the police. I've several people, in fact, 6 people in 1 week called the police to have a well-being check done, and the cop just made a snide remark about how I was the 6th person to call that week to have a well-being check done, and he's sure my daughter's fine. Um, I I know for a fact that there are several of her dad's uncles that have been convicted of rape and sodomy of a child under the age of 13. Uh, one of the charges on deceased uncle now, all of my daughter's grandfather's brothers, in fact, was sexual exploitation of a minor. Her grandmother filed for custody of every single one of her grandkids, getting granted custody of one of the grandkids who's now deceased. It was the only girl. She couldn't walk at the age of 20 years old. She died. She was immediately cremated. They called it MS, but I think that maybe it was just extreme sexual abuse at a very young age and it broke her hips and her back. That's just my assumption. So, anyway, she was immediately cremated, and I'm pretty sure her life insurance check is what paid the judges off and bought custody of my little girl. And my daughter's grandmother's oldest 2 boys died a year apart and were immediately cremated. So there's no, both of them had 6-digit life insurance policies. His parents have several assets in several different states. I know that his parent, I know that her grandparents and her dad and uncle have offered several people money to get rid of me. They have they have tried to convince me to kill myself, or they were going to kill my daughter. They have tried to convince me that they were holding her hostage, and if I did not commit suicide, that they were going to kill her. In fact, at first I tried to commit suicide, and immediately, luckily, a friend of mine showed up to save my life, and I woke up at the stress center, and I realized that if I would have committed suicide, like, where would that have left my little girl? Like, she would have been even more vulnerable, because as long as I'm breathing, if they kill her, I'm going to tell on them. And so they have tormented me. They have tormented me, trying to get me to kill myself. They have tried to offer very large sums of money to get people to kill me for them. And I remember before me and my little girl's dad split up, he would always tell me, I wish you would just kill yourself. And I remember my little girl, when she was just barely old enough to stand up in her crib, she did this weird thing. And I asked the doctor about it then, because before he took off with her, I took her to every one of her, my signatures on every one of her shot records. I took her to every one of her doctor's appointments. I took her to the doctor with me when I went. And when she started doing this, I was like, why would a little girl do something like that? It's weird. She would shove her whole fist down her throat until she would throw up all over the place. And at the time, like the doctors were just like, oh, it's just a phase. She'll get over it. But looking back now, I realize that it was her way of trying. She couldn't talk yet even, and it was her way of trying to tell me, like, obviously something, she was imitating something being shoved down her throat and hitting her gag reflex. And without any access to her medical records due to the court's unlawful restriction that they put on me, and me not having any way to talk to her at all. She's not allowed to speak to anybody in my family. I have no way of proving that he's been sexually abusing her, or that his family, it's all men in his family. Why would a house full of men go to such extremes to keep every aspect of a tiny little baby girl's life so secret? And why do his parents have so many dead offspring and so many dead grandchildren and so many large life insurance policies that are paid on, and so many previous siblings of her grandfathers that have been convicted of sex crimes? And why would the courts ever think to give a little girl to a family like that with those kind of suspicions and that kind of a background, and not have any way to communicate with her mother? Anyway, I hope that this gets around. I hope that people from my town, from my county, realize that they are stealing our kids, and they're taking payoffs. The court systems are, and rather than admit that they did a wrong, that they screwed up, they'll just sit back and wait for the other family, the opposing family that has the money to get rid of me, to pay people to try to kill me, to have me hit with a car and almost paralyzed. I almost died. To have me taken and woken up at a landfill after being raped and then thrown in jail in order for them to take the custody away from me that they did. I fought for 2 years straight. I had visitation. I had 50-50 custody. I was with my little girl every single day. And then he just took off with her one day. And the cops said, oh, well, it's a civil matter. And I went to court and I got my visitation. I paid over $5,000 to an attorney. And in less than a month, he tried to send me a bill for another $2,500 that I didn't have. They denied me legal aid, and just, I mean, they just little by little, they took more and more away from me without any reason. They never gave me a reason why my visitation was being cut down, or why, why any of this. I never got to talk, and then it got switched to a different judge, and I never even got to speak out loud. Like, the judge flat out told me, ma'am, you need to stop talking. You don't have an attorney. I can't listen to anything you have to say. And I was crying, begging. I said, Your Honor, please, please. I said, I haven't seen my little girl in the last 30 days. My attorney withdrew from my case because I couldn't afford to give him any more money. And they switched me judges at the same time. And as soon as my attorney withdrew from my case, he withdrew my daughter from my visitation. And since my visitation was signed by the first judge, the second judge didn't have to honor it. So he pretty much told me to shut up, to figure out how to come up with more money to get an attorney. And then maybe I could come back in a month and talk. And I said, Your Honor, please just can you please just allow me to see my daughter in the meantime? And he said, Ma'am, you're not allowed to talk. You don't have an attorney. I can't listen to anything you have to say. So I went back to the other courtroom, and I waited until the entire docket was finished to try to talk to that judge. And that judge told me, I'm sorry, but I'm no longer the judge on your case. You're going to have to speak to the new judge. And I'm still trying to deal with them threatening my life, with them harassing me constantly. Like, how does his family have any reason to come outside of my home to stalk me, to threaten me, to try to hurt me repeatedly? And like, if I'm not even allowed to speak to my child, I haven't heard her voice in 3 years. I'm not allowed access to her medical records or her school records. Then why do they have any reason at all to go out of their way to contact me on matters that have nothing to do with my kid? And why will the police not help me? I mean, how many cars do I got to get hit by to prove that it's not just a coincidence? Anyway, my name's Candace Murphy, and my child was taken illegally by the court system in Franklin County, Missouri. And my life has had attempts made on it repeatedly, and somehow by the grace of God, I believe for my little girl's sake, I'm still breathing. So, pass it around, add to it, prove it.